Namaste, Jai Hind, and welcome to this edition of The Right Stand. I'm Anand, Narasimhan, and we begin with some important developments, viewers. Vantara, an animal research, rehabilitation, rescue center, has been under the center of some controversy despite the yeoman service that they are doing for living beings that cannot actually express their pain and their suffering. The Supreme Court appointed SIT has given a clean chit to the Vantara Zoological Rescue and Rehabilitation Centre. A bench of Justices Pankaj Mittal and Justice P.B. Varale took the SIT report on record, noting that authorities are satisfied with Vantara's compliance and regulatory measures when it comes to the acquisition of animals, their treatment, care, and also their upkeep. The court observed that Vantara is in strict compliance with all laws. CNN News 18 has accessed the Supreme Court order and also the 45-page report that was submitted, along with all the complaints that have been listed in this 45-page order by the court. Key highlights: no credible, tangible or prosecutable evidence has been produced. There is limited material that's been submitted and it does not disclose any offence. At some places, the complaints have also been called imaginative. The complaints are therefore devoid of merit. No irregular cash or crypto flows have been brought out. No engagement with smugglers or unlicensed intermediaries has been found. The SIT concludes that the allegations made are baseless. Acquisitions are neither vitiated nor tainted by fraud. No illegal acquisition of animals via any foreign donor zoo. Acquisition of animals has been conducted with complete regulatory compliance. More than 40,000 animals have been rescued, rehabilitated and cared for, and this is across species, viewers. It takes a great amount of compassion, karuna, to be able to try and undertake an exercise like this. It is purely not for profit. It is for the betterment of planet Earth, because they are also working on extensive research on how to save endangered species or even bring them back from extinction. There is huge amount of work that is being done with more than 150 wildlife reserves and sanctuaries across Bharat and also the globe and the world over to try and rescue, rehabilitate ill and old and also, more importantly, ill-treated animals. Sohail Seth is with us. Sohail ji, namaste. There has been a lot of noise that's been made around Vantara. I have personally been there. You have to see it to believe it. But for those naysayers who on hearsay, on articles, who are compelled to try and defame an effort like this, your thoughts on the court's observations and the SIT's findings?
Anand, I've been to Vantara on the 2nd of March last year, 2024. It is something that India should be proud of. The conservation is globally the finest. But what do we do in our country? Anyone who does good work will be flooded by stupid PILs. Now tell me, you have Justice Chelmeshwar, who was the head of the SIT, who in the world of these so-called left liberals and leftists is seen as an anti-Modi judge. He's the chair of the SIT. You have a gentleman called Hemant Nagarkar, who was the police commissioner, appointed by who? The Mahayuti, Uddhav Thackeray. So no one can say these were Modi lovers or Modi appointees. These are people who were actually and are actually anti-Modi. So the first thing we establish is that this committee is so left that you can't imagine. And if this committee has found Vantara to be totally above board, which it is, has analyzed every facet, as you have rightly mentioned in your opening remarks, whether it is the procurement, it is the rehabilitation, it's the resuscitation, it is the looking after of animals, they have not found one thing wrong. I salute the Supreme Court. But what tragically saddens me is that in our country, we have these people with agendas who constantly want to belittle good work that is being done. I have seen Anand Ambani as a child. I have seen his enduring love for the voiceless, for the helpless, for animals. You know, it takes a lot of courage, Anand, and it's not about the money. It takes a lot of courage to devote your life to a passion that will not be seen in a profit and loss statement. It takes a lot of courage, it takes a lot of passion to do things that you believe are for the betterment of people who can't even thank you, because these are voiceless animals. You have set a world standard in conservation. And then you have these scoundrels, whether it be in South Africa, which, by the way, they're absolute rascals. South Africa has now these jokers who've written vicious articles. And look at the decency of an Anand or a Mukesh or a Neeta. Not one of them responded to these scurrilous allegations. They could have been sued, silly. But remember one thing, Anand, we are the land of Mahatma Gandhi, and the truth will always prevail. Today, it is not a judgment in favor of Vantara. It's a judgment in favor of compassion. It's a judgment in favor of doing the right thing. It's a judgment in favor of people who will do the right thing without taking the credit. You've had Prime Minister Modi visit Vantara. I have visited Vantara, but I'm no one. You had global business leaders visit Vantara. You had conservation experts. By the way, there's an anecdote which I must share with you. There's a chap called Alok Gupta, who's an environment activist lawyer. One day, he was telling me, what about Vantara, blah, blah. I said, why don't you go there? He went there and he came back and told me and told everyone who cared to listen that this is a global example of compassionate excellence. This is what Vantara is.
True. And
in our country, we have this nasty habit of finding fault with anything anyone does which is for the betterment of the world. Today, you know what? We should be proud of Vantara. We as Indians should be proud that we have been able to create a rehabilitation and a center for the voiceless. But what do? We have planted PILs, we have agendas that are being pursued, and we have criminal mentality as far as conservation and conservation excellence is concerned. Today, the Supreme Court has actually helped each one of those 40,000 inhabitants of Vantara. So today, the Supreme Court has actually stood for the voiceless.
And thing is, the fact is that this is kept so private and it is kept inside because the intent is not to commercialize it. But the flip side of that has been people from outside don't know what's happening there, and they cannot believe that something like this can happen in Bharat with no ulterior motive, but with only an altruistic intent. Now that is perhaps
is the problem.
And they, because they all. They're seeing the cats, they're seeing the animals. They've not seen how they came from these hunting lodges of South Africa. I've seen that emaciated lion and the image that its skeletal remains, skeletons were all coming out, and it had been starved for more than 25-30 days and it could barely walk. And look at the animal now, how it's been rehabilitated. That story escapes common imagination.
So my grandmother used to say, "Neki kar kuein mein dal." But today, when you do neki and you do good and you don't talk about it, it is these criminally minded, sectarianly divided, petty minds that then go to the Supreme Courts of the world to file complaints. A, B. Let me ask you one question.
Right.
Today, we have Vantara, which is actually helping zoos. It is helping conservation experts. There are many conservation experts who've been there. And what do? You try and belittle, you try and demean, you try and find fault. This is something we should be proud of.
Yes.
I mean, that is the problem with the Ambanis. When they do good, they don't want to talk about it, and at times it works against them. Now, can you imagine if the Ambanis had actually decided, we're going to brag about it, we're going to get people in, but that's not them. And that shouldn't be them. Because they are following a dharma where you do your work and you keep quiet. Today, every animal, every one of those 40,000 inhabitants is actually silently thanking them. But you know what? you will still have some scoundrels and some jokers who will go to courts of law and try to befuddle, belittle, and
the courts
besmirch the
have,
process.
let's hope the courts have set the matters to rest with this SIT and also the observations by the Honorable Court saying that all these are, you know, imaginative, unfounded, and they don't even merit further investigation. Forget even criminal jurisprudence, under criminal jurisprudence, any penalty or punishment, because they don't even merit further investigation. So that's
that is
the word.
my problem with the judgment.
That's the word.
My problem with the judgment is they should have actually penalized those Johnnies who file these fabricated, factitious petitions.
Well,
but that's for another debate.
Yes. So, LG, thank you very much. Just on the way out and as we move on, viewers, just think 40,000 animals across various species are being cared for. By who? By people who are not only cared for, also their families are cared for. Their children have got free schooling there. The farmers in that entire region are developing produce and also for Vantara. Those families are also being cared for and their children are also getting all these elephants. There are 200 elephants, each has about 2 mahouts. Their families, their children, all of them are being taken care of. So there is a huge level of paying it forward and helping society happening, not just with the animals, but also with humanity. So there's a big story there with respect to Vantara, and I've seen it, and that's why I think empathize with not just those who are doing this, but also agree with the courts and their observations. So thank you, Justice Chelameshwar and his team, the SIT. Moving on to another matter of court. The Supreme Court has declined to put the entire Waqf Amendment Act on hold, noting that no such case has been made out to pass such an order. However, the bench led by Chief Justice B.R. Gavai has observed that some provisions may need temporary protection and has stayed certain sections of the Act. Now, the Supreme Court has stayed the practicing Muslim clause to donate land to Waqf. Waqf boards can't have more than 3 non-Muslim members out of 11. The Act had provision for at least up to 7 members. And at least 12 out of 22, that has also now been reduced to a single digit. A collector cannot determine the rights to property. It has to be settled in courts. The collector can't decide. Only courts can decide the title of a property. The center has to form rules to determine if a man is a practicing Muslim. So they've stayed it till the time the center notifies the rules of how it defines a practicing Muslim. Till then, any ruling on the same will be arbitrary, is what the court has noted. No third-party rights can be created during proceedings. So the Waqf also cannot give it to a third party. So even if it continues to remain Waqf, despite it being challenged by the center or being asked for, till it is settled, the Waqf also cannot hand it to a third party. So no third-party rights. No case has been made out to stay the entire Waqf Act. They believe the intent is right, but there have been some riders. Now, while the centre has welcomed the Supreme Court ruling, the opposition has said that stay orders are a major indictment of the Act. Listen in.
पार्लियामेंट ऑफ इंडिया का जो डिसीजन है उसको कायम रखा, लेकिन जजमेंट को स्पिरिट और जो पूरा संपूर्ण ऑर्डर का भाव को मैं कहना चाहता हूँ कि हमारे लिए, देश के लिए बहुत अच्छा जजमेंट आया और डेमोक्रेटिक इंडिया के लिए, पार्लियामेंट्री डेमोक्रेसी के लिए ये जजमेंट बहुत अच्छा संकेत है.
Supreme Court has granted some stay, some relief have been given. And these reliefs are very important so far the Waqf Act is concerned. You see, Waqf dispute why the Act was brought. Act was brought basically for the purpose to seize the power of the Waqf board to decide what are the Waqf properties on which belongs to government.
एक अच्छा फैसला और कुछ पॉइंट्स जिसमें माननीय उच्चतम न्यायालय ने रोक लगाई, इसके को आगे बढ़ाया, वो बहुत क्लियर है और उससे वक्फ करने वाले लोग, वक्फ की ज़मीनों को सुरक्षित रखने की लड़ाई लड़ने वाले लोग, मुझे लग रहा है कि वो खुश होंगे क्योंकि ये एक अच्छा फैसला है.
That its directions are interim in nature, issued to safeguard rights until the law's constitutional validity is examined in full at the final hearing. The question now remains, does the order indicate that more tweaks are needed to the Waqf Amendment Act, or is it being defanged for the larger cause to place guardrails and accountability measures? Let's go across to Ishkaran Bhandari, lawyer at Supreme Court, and Tausif Ahmed Khan, a lawyer himself. So 2 advocates now. Let's I hope you have perused the judgment in detail. Your thoughts. Ishkaran, let's start with you. Yes. Thank you for your patience, gents. Namaste and Jai Hind. Go ahead, Ishkara.
Yes. See, firstly, the first step was that the petitioners wanted to argue that the entire act is incorrect. It should be stayed. That has clearly been rejected. What has been given, there are certain, you have to leave it and you have to see it on both sides. What has been given to the center, what all has been upheld, and what has been stayed. And stayed also in some of these things is a partial stay. For example, that 5-year practice, if you do not have a practice of 5 years as a Muslim, can you make a waqf? That is still the state government frames the rules for them. For example, you see CA, there are various enactments in which even if passed, unless rules are framed, they cannot be operative on ground. So the rule framing is essential, and that's the part which the court has recognized that without rules it may lead to a certain amount of arbitrariness. So you frame the rules for that. But is that clause, is that section itself to be stayed? That has not been done. When the rules are framed, they may be challenged, they may not be challenged. We will see what happens, but it's a step which has to go forward. The second aspect, that no non-Muslim should be a part of the board, is what has been argued very often. That has clearly not been done. 3 out of 11, 25%, 27%, whatever it may be. Even with respect to the CEO, as far as possible, an endeavor should be made. But it is not that it shall be. So, depending on the state government, they will make an endeavor. If they find the best person, it could be a Muslim, but there is also some amount of discretion left that has to be decided. But what are the important factors in favor of the center that has to be gone into? Because one of the most important things was, and not only in this case, in last 10 years, I believe a new ground has arisen that on one pretext or the other, we will not show documents. We will not show documents if it is about NRC, if it's about illegal immigration. There are people who do not want to show documents if it's about voting rights, whether illegal should be able to vote or not. There are people who argue not show documents if it's about whether we are the owners of property or not. An ordinary person has to show an entire chain of property. If you buy a property, you have to not only show how it was allotted, what is the mother deed, how it was subsequently transferred. So all documents have to be shown, and it has to be duly registered. For example, for immovable property, the law is very clear. That you cannot transfer an immovable property without a duly registered deed, be it a gift deed, be it a deed or whatever. But this ground that we will not show and we will say it is by user is what the ground which has led to a lot of complications. And because how do you say what is user, what is not user, and then the person has to fight a very, very stiff battle to prove that. So that the court has said, at least in respect of prospectively, that you will have to register. There has been no stay on that. Then we have to deal with tribal rights. There are certain restrictions on tribal lands. Those restrictions which the Act wants to make stronger, saying that a tribal land should not be parted away in this manner, the court has not stated that. The bar has been kept there. What about ASI monuments? The court has accepted that. So, in totality, it's an interim order. The final order very often can be different. It could be an absolute flip. But as of today, I would say 90 to 95% of the Act has been upheld by the court. And what has been stated, the collector point, yes, it has been stated. It's a clear state. But even in that, you cannot create a third party interest. Even in a litigation between two private parties, if one person is in possession, we call it a stay order, that the person in possession cannot create a third party interest.
Right.
So in this case, who is in possession cannot create a third party interest. So we have to see it that. But to me, the biggest finding is that out of this 90-95% of the Act has been upheld, which was a big threshold to cross because it was said that the entire Act is ultra vires. The second aspect is what has been stayed is also some amount of conditionality is there, which the government has and recourses it can take if it satisfies the court once it takes that. And the third aspect, waqf by user, registration, limitation law, ASI monument, all that which was very important has now come in, is not state, is the law of the land.
Yeah, waqf by user being prospective and not retrospective is a critical view there. But when everything is going to be, has to be settled or decided, that means things are going to hang around in courts for a long, long time. Now, is that good or bad? It's going to be in limbo. Tausif, your thoughts?
So you see, the principal protest against this amendment from the entire Muslim community and the liberal community, right-thinking person, was that this is an attempt, this amendment was an attempt by the central government to grab Muslim lands, to grab lands belonging to Waqf. And what was the medium through which government tried to do that? Central government, by bringing this legislation, had this evil design to use collector to dispossess to change the nature of the Waqf land, and to dispossess the Waqf board of the land, and to take it away, and then do whatever it wants through the collector. Now, this is the most crucial attack, most crucial, vehicle by which the government had planned to grab the Waqf lands, to grab the Muslim land, to grab the land meant for the charitable purposes, meant for the poor of the society. And the Supreme Court has very clearly, leaving no room for doubt, had striked on this. Now, very clearly, Supreme Court had said there is a stay on that proviso. There is a stay on the subsection of Section 3, and they very categorically stated that no third-party interest can be created in the meantime. It is the tribunal who will decide for all the matters pending before it. The collector can in no way decide who the land belongs to, because needless to say that it is not only ultra-virus, but it is unheard of. Yet the government proceeded to bring this legislation because government or the BJP party wanted to play this Hindu-Muslim binary, the Hindu-Muslim politics for political reasons. And we all understand that not everyone here, there are, WhatsApp University Chhatra, there are Andhbhaks, I have nothing against them. But yes, there are right-thinking people everywhere in the society. And even the advocates in the Supreme Court who are representing the Waqf side were all non-Muslims. And they all understand what is legality, what is legal. And let me tell you, I was one of the petitioners and I was present in the Supreme Court the first day. And Tushar Mehta himself, the Solicitor General himself, assured the court, and even the day after, even before the stay order was passed, that in effect they were not going to take any action. The stay order, the formal stay order has come now, but the interim assurance, was already given by the central government that they will not proceed, in accordance with the amendment, just in line with what we see now. The order has been formalized by the Supreme Court, but this assurance was already given by Tushar Mehta himself.
So is Tushar Mehta a Is Tushar Mehta a right-minded person or not?
No, it's with lawyers.
I'm just saying you're welcome to hold your opinion, but don't pass judgment on who is a right-minded person and who is not. That you don't have the right to. You have the right to say what is your thought process. If you're trying to say that people. No, 1 minute. You have every right, like I said, to have an opinion on the judgment and to interpret the judgment. But who is a right-thinking individual and who is not a right-thinking individual is not for you to pass a judgment on. And if you want to define Andhbhakti, sir, there are many Andhbhaks we can define, who call themselves Maoists but practice Islam, who call themselves Marxists but practice Islam. So what is the bhakti and what is the political ideology can be questioned. So I'm not getting into all of that. So I'm just saying, please don't pass these kind of judgments. You are entitled to your view, but your freedom to have a view stops at my nose and at Ishkaran's nose. Are you trying to say that Ishkaran Bhandari is not a right-minded individual?
Anand,
that's what I'm saying. Yes, Ishkaran. No, I'm just making an
I need 10 seconds.
I'll give you.
I need 10 seconds to rebut what you have said. Just 10 seconds.
Go ahead.
What I said, that the evil design of central government to dispossess Muslims of their Waqf land through use of collector has been completely demolished by the Supreme Court.
You are welcome to say that, and I did not question you there. That is your opinion on the judgment. Please go ahead on that. But beyond that, or whatever suffixes that you added, that's where I raised an objection to. Yes, Ishkaran. Yes, Ishkaran Bhandari.
And then 2 short points, because a lot is being said about the order today. The learned Solicitor General, of course, is going to argue what's the law, what was in the act. It is only outside you spread misrepresentation, then the court decides the act as passed and you say it's a victory. For example, how was it say CA is going to take away the citizenship of Muslims? We saw in n number of speeches on that. The act never did it. But if the court holds that the act will not take away the citizenship of Muslims, you will come out and say it's a big victory. This is a self-fulfilling argument. They can do that. But the reality is what has been happened. There are 2 aspects. One, I want to address what the point you raised. Retrospective effect. To my mind, we have to retrospectively examine, but it is to my mind. It is not what the act has been passed right now. To my mind, there has to be a retrospective examination of all properties declared as Waqf by user, whether they had a right to create that user or it is illegal occupation of land, and that if it is an illegal occupation of land has to be corrected in my mind, and I believe we
Right.
will move towards it. We have to move towards it because the data has come out
Right.
how from around 2 lakh properties registered as Waqf in 2013, around 18 lakh acres, now it's become 39 lakh acres.
Right.
That's a humongous jump. In Delhi itself, the data has come out. I was reading an article and there is enough government records on this, how it has a tenfold jump. We have a Delhi High Court case going on where time and again, even though the High Court in 80s gave a judgment, successive governments try to denotify the land and say, no, this has to go to Waqf after court judgment in lands which Britishers had recorded as not being Waqf. So we have constant attempts to that. So we have to re-examine that issue because that is, it cannot be a case that certain benefits or illegality via law
Right.
were allowed to be perpetuated.
Now,
and
here is the thing. Has this act in its current sense, even in the interim sense, been defined? Has it been written? Because there are a lot of people who do not even agree with the way the Waqf Amendment Act has been drafted. If it was really to curb the alleged malpractices or misuse of Waqf itself. The court today in its interim judgment has very clearly said Waqf is an Islamic act. It's under the rules of Islam. So a non-Islamic person trying to donate it to Waqf does not make any sense because it's contradictory in its claim. So that observation has also been made despite being argued very heavily in court. So that's also happened. But this is an interim judgment. We'll wait for the final one. I have to move on, press for time. Thank you very much, Tausif and Ishkaran. Thank you very much. We've got a very special guest joining us on an important story. It was quite literally a wipeout and a humiliation that perhaps deserved and redeemed the cricketers on the cricket field, although they may clash again very soon, around the 21st of this month again. Bharat cruising to a 7-wicket win, complete, emphatic, clinical at the Asia Club clash in Dubai, but the spotlight shifted to what happened post-match and off the field, where the players refused to shake hands, they closed the doors, and Surya Kumar Yadav crediting the victory and dedicating the victory to the victims of the Pahalgam terror attack and also to our braves, saying that you continue to inspire us and hope we can give you more reasons to smile and redeem your sacrifice and your contribution to the country. So that's what he said. But they also added that there are some things that are above sportsmanship. This was in the post-match press conference, adding that the team stood with the victims of Pahalgam attack and then again underlined that dedicating the win to the armed forces, making a mention of Operation Sindoor in the post-match press conference. Pakistan skipped the post-match press conference while PCB chairman Mohsin Naqvi has said that the body has lodged a complaint with the ICC regarding violations by match referee Andy Pycroft with respect to code of conduct and spirit of cricket. The PCB has demanded an immediate removal of the referee. But here's the thing, the ICC does not mandate handshakes before or after the matches. Handshakes are considered a symbol of sportsmanship, but not a legal or disciplinary requirement. The ICC does not penalize teams for skipping handshakes, but it does take into cognizance if teams skip post-match press conferences. So beyond the criticism mounted against the BCCI, has a message also been convincingly sent that patriotism is about sportsmanship? Madan Lalji is with us, former cricketer, member of the 1983 World Cup squad. Madipa, namaste. This is Anand here. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Anand. Thank you very much.
How do you look at Surya Kumar Yadav and Bharat's participation and its conduct with the Pakistanis in this Asia Cup?
Well, I think Surya Kumar Yadav did whatever the team management had decided or BCCI decided. That's what he did. Normally, the captain never do all these things, but which he mentioned that this victory belongs to the Pahalgam victims. So look, we also have a sentiment, and whatever happened in the Pahalgam, we are also very dukhi. It means we are also was very, very hurt, So, he did whatever the BCCI told him to do it. And whether they won the match or not, that's a different part of it. But they must have decided beforehand, we're not going to shake hands. And, Anand, Pakistan are not going to improve, they are always going to be like this. Look at their country, going down the drain because every time whenever they come and play the game or whatever other thing, they always talk hatred, which is not right. We are not like that, people. We always want a peace and we want to grow. That's what matter, is in life and for the country.
जब आप खेलते थे तब भी वे ऐसे थे?
नहीं, तब भी वैसे नहीं थे, बट ये था कि हैंडशेक वगैरह तो होते थे, दोस्ती भी होती थी, पर ये था कि जब आप पाकिस्तान आओगे तो हम आपको जीतने नहीं देंगे, जब आप इंडिया में हम आए तो आप हमें ना जीतने देना. दैट टाइम द अंपायर वाज not neutral, So there's a lot of funny stories, I went to Pakistan twice, but there's a lot of funny stories, They said, okay, right, if we lose here, Pakistan players used to say that we're going to get smacked, But in India, it was different totally.
Right. But let me ask you, there were two thought processes in this match. One, that Bharat should not play with Pakistan. किसी भी tournament में नहीं खेलना ही नहीं. The other thought process was, this is a multilateral sport, multinational sport, and if Bharat doesn't play, then Pakistan has a chance of winning the cup. तो उनको कप क्यों जीतने दें? लड़ेंगे, हम लड़ेंगे, लड़के खेलेंगे हमारे जवान. In the sense, our players will also play. They will do what they are supposed to do for their country, turn up and fight, give them a chance. Which is the thought process that you would want to follow?
No, I want to follow the thought process which you told me just now in the first beginning. We'll play, we'll beat them. That's the victory we want, So that's the only way you can do it. Show them that we are a better side, we are much better people. We are not against you, but you cannot isolate Pakistan. Pakistan को आप isolate नहीं करते because you are a member of the ACC, board, or you are a member of ICC, ICC board. तो आप उनको आइसोलेट नहीं कर सकते. आइसोलेट करना मीन ठीक है, आप नहीं खेलेंगे तो बाकी कंट्रियां तो खेल रही है ना पाकिस्तान के साथ. वो उनके होम ग्राउंड पे भी खेल रही हैं, अवे पाकिस्तान प्लेइंग अवे आल्सो. So then that's not going to make any difference. But आप पाकिस्तान को आइसोलेट नहीं कर सकते. हाँ, it depends upon the government, what the government take decision कि look, all the ties are finished with the Pakistan, then it's a different thing.
But in a multilateral sport, जैसे आज कल का मैच सब लोग कहा कि ठीक है आप एशिया कप खेलो, पाकिस्तान का मैच छोड़ दो, पर then others are saying कि वो सारे पॉइंट पाकिस्तान ही ले जाएंगे, यानी वो सुपर 4 में चले जाएंगे, वो फिर फाइनल में आप इंडिया पाकिस्तान होता तो क्या आप नहीं खेलोगे? आप कप नहीं जीतना चाहते हो, आप उनको कप फ्री में दे दोगे, हम कैसे फ्री में देते हैं? सो देयर आर दीज टू थॉट. तो आप क्या सोचते हैं? क्योंकि ये बहुत कुछ चल रहा था, बीसीसीआई को बॉयकॉट करो, पाकिस्तान का मैच बॉयकॉट करो, ये सब पैसे का खेल है. प्लेयर का क्या सेंटिमेंट होती है? आपको नहीं लगता कि अगर आपको मिल रहा है जज्बा अपने देश के लिए खेलने के लिए, मौका मिल रहा है, कोई बंदूक से करता है, कोई कलम से करता है, आप क्रिकेट की बॉल से करते हैं, तो आप नहीं चाहेंगे कि आपको वो चांस मिले एज अ प्लेयर? मैं पूछ रहा हूँ मदीबा.
मैं बिल्कुल चाहूँगा कि मुझे चांस मिले. मैं अभी भी मैं क्रिकेट तो नहीं खेला, काफी देर से मैं रिटायरमेंट मैंने ली हुई है, पर अभी मेरे में पैशन है, मेरे को लगता है कि मैं भी खेलूं. ये नेचुरल है, ये बिकॉज आई प्लेड फॉर 20-30 years, so I always feel I should be the part of this team, but end of the day, like ना खेलने से कोई है नहीं है, कोई हल नहीं निकलता. दूसरी बात, पैसे की लोग बात करते हैं कि हमें पैसे के बगैर गेम थोड़ी चलती है. Without money you cannot run the game. Look at the BCCI nowadays. Now they are $1 billion industry, and they have created a lot of good things. There are infrastructure, the teams coming and going, and all the A team, B teams, they're all playing. That's why our standard is so high now. Look at the Pakistan standard yesterday. मैं समझता हूँ कि पाकिस्तान टीम जैसे कल खेली है, उनमें टैलेंट ही नहीं है, और टैलेंट ही नहीं है, और जैसे उन्होंने शॉट्स खेले हैं, मैं बिलीव करता हूँ कि ऐसा शॉट मैंने कभी इंटरनेशनल क्रिकेट में नहीं देखे. टोटल लैक ऑफ स्किल. एंड सो व्हाई नॉट वी प्ले, एंड मनी डेफिनेटली उनको भी मिलेगा, बट मेजर ऑफ द मनी वी विल गेट, एंड वी कैन रन द स्पोर्ट्स बेटर व्हेन whatever the money you have, you need more to run it, And look at the BCCI, and they giving pension to the older player also. You know how much money they give it to the older players? They give a lot of money to the players. So BCCI doing a great job. But Pakistan, मैं आपको आनंद अभी भी कह रहा हूँ, ये सुधरेंगे नहीं. तो मर्जी कर लिया, आपको भी पता है, आपने भी इतने प्रोग्राम करते हो, आपके गेस्ट भी आते हैं, पर आप उनका जब तरीका है बोलने का और आपके विचार रखने का बिल्कुल टोटली डिफरेंट है.
तो आपके हिसाब से जब हमको मौका मिले, जहां मौका मिले, इनका बैंड बजाएं.
हाँ, बिल्कुल,
चाहे वो खेल
ठीक
का
है।
मैदान हो, कोई भी खेल हो, या फिर जंग का मैदान हो, जहां भी हो, चांस मिले
हाँ,
तो
बिल्कुल।
बैंड बजाओ।
बिल्कुल सही कहा आपने। देखिए हमारा इन्होंने पहलगाम में किया, हमने उनको अटैक किया, ठीक है। अब अगर हमारे इतने लोग जो मारे हैं इन्होंने, हमें भी इनको डबल मारना चाहिए। देखिए हमें भी सेंटीमेंट, हमारे जो भाई बहन जो यहाँ पे जिनको इन्होंने मारा, वो भी बड़े गलत तरीके से, देखिए बड़ा गलत तरीका, किसी को रिलीजन पूछना, किसी को ये करना, ये तरीका थोड़ी है कि किसी को अटैक करने का। ऐसा नहीं होता। किसी भी इंसान को मारना या उनको वो करना, ये बिल्कुल हमारे कल्चर में तो नहीं है कि हम, आपको पता ही है कि हम जो है ऐसा कभी नहीं करते। और अभी तक जितने भी प्रॉब्लम्स आई है पाकिस्तान की तरफ से आई है, हमारी तरफ से तो कोई प्रॉब्लम आई नहीं है उनको।
जी
वी ऑलवेज सपोर्टेड पाकिस्तान
जी,
है ना, अमन की चाशा हो चाहे कुछ भी हो, हमने अपना हाथ आगे बढ़ाया। बट ये अगेन सेम थिंग, दे विल डू द थिंग्स अगेन। So that's what they are, because their country is, look at the 75 years, they are still in the same place, and we don't have a time to think about them. We have to think about ourselves and our country, how we can grow about that.
तो अब आपको लगता है कि जब चांस मिले, अगला भी अभी 21 को फिर मैच है, बिकॉज सुपर 4 में शायद A1 A2 फिर से खेलेंगे, सो अगेन इंडिया एंड पाकिस्तान विल प्ले। अब उस दिन मान लीजिए मैच का रिजल्ट उल्टा हो गया तो देश में सेंटिमेंट अलग हो जाएगा। तो ये जो मैच दर मैच जो सेंटिमेंट का फर्क पड़ता है, वो आपको कितना इफेक्ट करता है, प्लेयर्स को कितना इससे फर्क पड़ता है?
देखो प्लेयर को इतना ज्यादा नहीं फर्क पड़ता, बट अफसोस जरूर होता है। ये अफसोस जरूर है कि हम मैच को जो हमारा प्लानिंग था हमने एग्जीक्यूट नहीं कर पाए, तो उससे फर्क जरूर पड़ता है। बाकी देखिए वी आर मच बेटर स्पोर्ट्समैन देन पाकिस्तान, They take the defeat at heart, Look at their country, all boiling down, They're abusing their own players. We never do that. We can criticize them. Our own player, we can criticize them that they not played the best of the game. So we can do that, but we not go after them. So that's what Pakistan is, and they used to have the best team in the world, when we were playing. But look at them now, their progress is zero. Because again, another thing their board is run by this armed forces, military, जो भी है आप कहते हैं उनको, जो है वो वही रन कर रहे हैं, वही डिसाइड करते हैं पे कौन जाएगा, कौन वहाँ पे पोस्ट पे आएगा, कौन यहाँ पे नहीं रहेगा, कोच बनेगा, कौन सेलेक्टर बनेगा, वही डिसाइड करते हैं।
उधर की आर्मी ने उनकी क्रिकेट का भी वही हाल कर दिया जो उनके देश का कर दिया है वदीपा। बट जाते जाते लास्ट क्वेश्चन टू यू, योर मैसेज टू सूर्या एंड द बॉयज, आपका क्या एडवाइस, क्या मैसेज होगा उनको?
मेरा मैसेज है कि अपने हौसले बुलंद रखिए। यू शुड प्ले द गेम दैट शुड बी प्लेड, प्ले हार्ड एंड विन इट। That's what my message is to them. And congratulations, you won the first match, but still you have a long way to go. You have to win the last match and win the Asia Cup. So our people, हमारे जो फैन बेस है उनको एक आप खुशी दे सके।
जी, और आप इतने फिट दिख रहे हैं अभी भी, इस पाकिस्तान टीम के साथ आप भी बॉलिंग करते तो आप भी शायद एक आध हैट्रिक निकाल ही लेते।
नहीं मैं तो पाकिस्तान टीम में जाना नहीं चाहता।
नहीं इंडियन टीम में कह रहा हूँ, पाकिस्तान का हैट्रिक ले लेते आप भाई। वो
इंडियन टीम तो I love my passion for playing for the Indian team.
Thank you so much, Madipa. Thank you. Lovely speaking with you. Thank you, sir. Namaste.
Thank you, Anand. Thank you very much.
Namaste. Moving on, viewers, an anti-immigration tsunami swept through London on Saturday as over 150,000 Unite the Kingdom protesters gathered in the heart of the city, chanting messages expressing the sentiment of reclaiming the country, reclaim UK. Organized by far-right activist Tommy Robinson, and it's not the first time he is gathering such crowds. The protest was fueled by a summer of rising anti-immigrant sentiment in the UK, with numerous smaller demonstrations having taken place against asylum seekers. The organizers employed rhetoric centered on claims of a great replacement of Europeans and destruction of Britain due to what they described as uncontrolled migration. The Keir Starmer government has sought to downplay the scale of the protest, but the question remains, will legal immigrants feel the pinch? Is the kingdom at a tipping point? Is the kingdom at a breaking point? Pandit Satish Sharma, author, is with us. Adit Kothari, founder member of the Indic Society. Both of them UK residents are with us. Some have I don't want to get into that, but they have removed themselves from certain areas so that they can live safely because of this immigrant problem. Others are facing the immigrant problem in policies with an exodus of British nationals over the last 3-4 months, and it's a huge number of the wealthy who are moving out. So Adit and Panditji, namaste. Thank you for your time. Pandit Satish Sharma, what's happening in the
Namaste Anand ji. Jai Shri Ram ji. Jai Shri Ram. Thank you very much for the chance to speak on this. I'd just like to refer to your introduction for a brief moment. The manner in which Tommy is being described, this thing about being the far right, that's become a hate brand. And it's used with the word Nazi, it's used with the word fascist. And I've always had a philosophy that if you have to resort to name calling, then you've already lost your argument.
Yeah.
Now, it's an accepted part of the political spectrum that there is the right wing and there is the left wing. This is how polarized politics works in the West. So even if they were far right, they're not criminals until they break the law. But the manner in which the British media has been presenting this for a long time is far right, far right, far right. And so I want to dispel that, because people like myself who've been in this country for 60 years, we lived through the 70s and the 80s and the late 60s. We know what the far right was. We encountered them on the streets. We had physical altercations with them, and there was a great deal of conflict. So we know who the far right were. And this march was not the far right. It was something totally different. The aspect which I think is really worth noticing is that inside the building behind them, you have all of these politicians who refer to each other as the Right Honourable and the Honourable. And something strange happened over the weekend in that the people who were marching, they had zero conflicts with the police, virtually. There were a few minor skirmishes, but those skirmishes haven't yet been laid at their door. But they were generally decent people who put up with politicians. They're your average working class who are up and down the country doing their best in a very simple, uncomplicated way to have a good life, build a decent society, have the chance for their children to have a good education, and simply go down to the pub at the weekends, watch a bit of football, and then come back home and go back to work. They were the people who were on the streets, and they were honourable people. And so let's change the narrative that has been put out. I'm hoping Aditji will agree with that sentiment, that Keir Starmer, who has taken on the mantle of the protector of the minorities of this country who are being targeted by the far right, I would go as far as to say that I would feel a lot safer in amongst the group who were protesting this weekend than I would as a British Hindu in a Labour Party conference. And I have been to a Labour Party conference and felt that I was actually unwelcome there.
Yeah, interesting though that the Never Again poster was flaunted there, the huge banner, and they said against fascism, against, and that's what their cry was. And Never Again is something that Vivek Agnihotri is wearing on his t-shirt when he's talking about the Bengal files and say we don't want something like a direct action day when those who are not supposed to be part here, they cleanse this place and remove the original inhabitants and try and seed that place with those who are actually not belonging there. And that was a reference. So it's quite surprising that that reference comes across in exactly the same way that it's written on his t-shirt. But yes, Adit, how would you look at what's happening? There are multiple versions to this. Are you worried as a legal immigrant there, and those who have come there legally, they seem to be worried because they are all being branded together as illegals. We've got the UK Home Ministry right now, Home Secretary putting pressure that there are more than 20,000 Bharatiya illegals who are there and they must be deported, among so many others, and they will all be deported. So on the one hand, it's talking about deportation, but on the other hand, it's the whole issue of immigration which is being brought about.
Yeah, I think if I was a ordinary British Indian, following the mainstream media, I would be extremely worried about the rise of Tommy Robinson, because I would automatically equate it to fascism. And that's what the mainstream media would have you believe, because it's turned fashionable for them to basically label anybody as fascist or Nazi, somebody who they predominantly disagree with. But because I have seen the way Tommy Robinson has conducted himself. He's again and again said repeatedly that he is not anti-immigration. he is in fact saying that if you want to allow immigration, you must allow the Sikhs, the Indians, the Filipinos who come in, integrate with the host population, add value, contribute to the local economy, add value to Britain as a country. That is not something which the mainstream media promotes or would like to promote. The heart of the problem, Anandji, is that some of the minority cultures have become predominant culture in many parts of the country, which has basically established a sense of cultural totalitarianism. Towns and cities have basically become unrecognizable. If you go into, say, Savile Town, parts of Leeds, parts of Manchester, Oldham, these are parts which are virtually unrecognizable. Churches have been, destroyed, and they've been, mosques have been built atop them. Local pubs have completely diminished. There are stories about 50 to 100 pubs in these towns which have completely disappeared. So the whole character of cities and towns have basically changed. But what would the mainstream media have you believe? That there were arrests in this particular protest, 26 to 40. 800 people were arrested during the pro-Palestine rally. But that doesn't make it into the mainstream media because it's selective reporting to a great degree.
No,
but from
25 is a far bigger number than 800.
Yeah, but they will cite the per capita numbers and the per capita arrests in that case. But there is a great change, Anandji, nonetheless, and the Indian diaspora, for some reason, is completely missing in action. We are standing on the sidelines of this great civilizational war, and if, as a collective society, if we fail to pick up a side now, I think somewhere or the other we will be road railed by one or the other. So I think the time has come that political correctness needs to be kicked into the dustbin, and we must speak out as a collective society.
But is this a growing sentiment? Because are there areas in the United Kingdom where now even the cops are afraid to go, and they're not allowed, Panditji?
Yes. In fact, there have been for a long time.
And was this planned or was this spontaneous? Because this is a huge turnout. Did the authorities even expect so many people to step out?
Well, firstly, turning to the areas, yes, there are areas. There are areas where it is so overtly monocultural. And, Aditji mentioned minority. The Labour Party shouldered the brand, the cause, the mission that minorities are always vulnerable, they're always cuddly, they're always cute, you have to look after them, we have to embrace them. But minorities can also be toxic. And just for your audience, I would remind them that the British were a toxic minority and it took us a lot of hard work to get rid of them. And can you imagine somebody saying that Subhash Chandra Bose was anti-immigration or Bhagat Singh was fighting against immigration? This is a very real parallel, and hopefully it will highlight the ridiculous nature of what the establishment is doing. But just turning to that point about the police, there was virtually zero conflict between the organisers and the Metropolitan Police, so much so that the Metropolitan Police were very happy for the demonstration or the protest to continue beyond its agreed time, because they had overrun a little bit, but because they were so happy with the manner in which this crowd had conducted itself. And so all of these fly in the face of the official rhetoric that's coming out from Parliament. But it is a sea change. It's been wonderful to see that the majority have been able to come together with a unified voice in a very civilized manner. They've taken the moral high ground. They have shown themselves to be decent people. And what they have done to some degree is handcuffed the government's ability to respond with overwhelming force, which it was very much ready to do. So the balance has all shifted now.
What happens next, Adit? Final word.
So I think, Anandji, just wanted to take the lead from where Panditji is leaving. I wouldn't want to lose my Indianness. I mean, I love my ethnicity, I love my culture, I love my traditions. So how is it right for me to expect my hosts to basically lose out on their Britishness? I mean, that's the kind of analogy that I would basically look at it. So, Indians are net contributors. Indians are adding value to Britain, and we must integrate with the host population. We must assimilate, and we must understand and respect their ethos and their British values. Anandji.
Agree, disagree, Panditji?
Yeah, I think we share fundamental human civilizational values. That's the issue. For me, it's not about parties, it's not about religions, it's about barbarian behavior and civilizational behavior. And the English people who were the ones out on the streets, they have basically said, we refuse to tolerate barbarians and acts which are barbaric against us, against our culture and against our civilization. And Bharatiyas have been fighting against barbarians in exactly the same mold for a long period of time. So there is overlap there, and I think you will see that this voice will become, shall we say, it will spread wider, it will transcend borders of ethnicity and colour, and those who want to see barbarianism disappear, which really the government should also want to see, they will come together and amplify this even more. This is a beginning.
But you don't see this being misinterpreted and a huge amount of racism spilling over onto the streets? You don't
Absolutely.
see you don't see
So,
that happening.
yes.
Given
Yes, there will be those who will take advantage of that, and this is where I think what Aditji said is of such importance. We have virtually got gagged Hindu representation in this country. You know, we have had such a long period of being totally silent and beavering away in the background that voice which is saying, well, actually, it isn't just one group of these minorities, get rid of all of them. We hate people of all colours. That voice is going to become stronger. And I think this is where the Hindu leadership has a responsibility to step forward and actually say, these are our values. We're also on the side of civilization. We're also in agreement with these, but they're noticeable by their absence.
right. Final 10 seconds. Yes, Adit.
10 seconds. So, you know, you spoke about racism against these sort of British Hindus and the British Indians. You know, a Sikh girl was basically attacked. She was raped and she was barbarically sort of molested, and then she was told to go back. Tommy Robinson was probably one of those only leaders who actually came out and condemned that. And he said that, you know, if there were white men who were responsible for this, he absolutely condemns this horrendous behavior. None of the mainstream politicians came out and said that, by the way.
Right.
So, you know, that's something that the mainstream media should take cognizance of.
Right. Now, we'd like to sit and have a chat with Tommy Robinson very soon, and hopefully that can happen too. Thank you very, very much, Adit and Pandit Satish Sharma, for, as always, joining us and taking the right stand. On that note, we're going to call it a wrap. Brass Tacks with Zakir Jacob after the break. Stay with us. Namaste.
This is News 18 Network. India's largest news network.
So, Ananya, Toya here, good morning. Asking you, at the risk of asking you to repeat yourself, but this is a big slice of breaking news and we're starting the show with this. First, give us the biggest takeaways. So, start by telling us the biggest takeaways on what the Supreme Court has had to say about the Waqf Act. We'll take more questions after that.
Well, you know, the Supreme Court has, in fact, made certain sections to be stayed at this particular point of time, like with regards to, you know, the one with regards to the practicing Muslim, the person has to say and prove that he's a practicing Muslim. The court has stayed that particular proviso until, you know, there are rules that are framed by the state government. Not only that, a big important thing that comes out from this verdict is that the Waqf Amendment Act 2025 that had been brought in by the Union government before the Parliament got it passed from both the houses is something that is on a prima facie view constitutional in nature. Only in rarest of the rare circumstances can the court actually stay such an act, is what in fact the Supreme Court has gone on to say. But the biggest takeaway that comes out of it is that not more than 3 Muslim members can be on the Waqf board, and a total of 4 non-Muslim members could be there in totality as far as the Waqf board and Waqf councils are concerned, is what the Supreme Court has gone on to say. However, as far as the Waqf by user is concerned, the Supreme Court has affirmed that there has to be registration of Waqf by user, and that is something, you know, that is really important, is what the top court has gone on to say. But it's a big win, you know, as far as the government is concerned, because the constitutionality of the act has been put a stamp on, at least in a prima facie view, by the Supreme Court, and that is something, you know, that the government would assail as a big victory for them.
So, Ananya, lay out for our viewers right now, please, which parts of the Waqf Act the Supreme Court has actually stayed. Are there clauses? Which are these clauses? Lay them out for us in detail, please.
Well, there are only certain provisos of the particular of the Waqf Amendment Act that have been stayed. That too, not because of they being violative of the constitutional provisions, but because there might not be a statutory framework for there. And as far as the collector's power with regards to determination of a property is a government property or not is something that has been stayed. That too only till the aspect that the collector though could determine as to whether a property is a public is a government property or not, but the revenue records could not be changed, and the Waqf status is not lost until and unless the matter is seen by the tribunal, the Waqf tribunal, and also by in fact the High Court itself. So that is something that has been stated by the Supreme Court. Secondly, that a person being a practicing Muslim for over 5 years is something that has been stated until the state government actually formulates in fact rules and regulations as far as to determine as to who is a practitioner of Islam and who is not. And that is why in the absence of in the absentia of in fact a legal framework, that has been stayed until and unless there is a legal framework that comes into place. And that is something that the government would also be in favor of somewhere or the other, because they would also be framing certain guidelines as to how to determine if a person is a non-Muslim is a practicing Muslim or not.
Okay, Ananya, stay with us, please. All right, we're going to go over to our battery of reporters who join us, but we're also going to first play out for you reactions that are continuing to come in. Take a look at those, and then we'll go over to our reporters for more context.
मैं चाहता हूं कि आज सर जिस तरह से आज फैसला है वो उसको आप कैसे देखते हैं, आप किन की तरफ से थे, इसके बारे में बताइए।
हम दो पेटिशनर्स के लिए थे, दोनों कांग्रेस के एमपी, एक किशनगंज के एमपी जावेद साहब जो जेपीसी के मेंबर भी थे, दूसरे लक्षद्वीप के एमपी हमदुल्ला सईद साहब, और जिनका ये कहना था कि जो 3E वाला प्रोविजन है जो कहता है कि शेड्यूल 5 और शेड्यूल 6 एरिया में वक्फ नहीं क्रिएट हो सकता, वो उनकी ट्राइबल पहचान और उनकी मुस्लिम पहचान में से किसी एक को चुनने की बात है। तो इनको हमने रिप्रेजेंट किया था और आज कोर्ट ने इंटरिम उस पर अपना फैसला सुनाया है। हमारे हिसाब से ये काफ़ी बैलेंस्ड और अच्छा फैसला है, लंबा है, कोर्ट ने खुद कहा कि इट्स अ लेंदी जजमेंट, तो उसको पढ़ना पड़ेगा, तब हम ज़्यादा बेहतर पोजीशन में होंगे इस पर कोई भी अच्छा इन्फॉर्म्ड ओपिनियन देने के लिए।
इसको हम आम बोलचाल की भाषा में समझना चाहते हैं अपने तमाम दर्शकों के लिए कि जो प्रमुख जो क्या क्या महत्वपूर्ण आज का कोर्ट का फैसला रहा है,
जो अभी तक प्रोनाउंस हुआ है, अभी कॉपी नहीं आई है, उसके हिसाब से जो वो प्रोविजन था कि 5 साल प्रैक्टिसिंग मुसलमान होना पड़ेगा वक्फ क्रिएट करने के लिए, उस पर स्टे हो गया है। साथ ही साथ जो प्रोविजन था कि जहां डिस्प्यूट होगा वो प्रॉपर्टी वक्फ नहीं रह जाएगी, उस पर पार्शियल स्टे है। उसके अलावा जो नॉन मुस्लिम मेंबर्स हैं वो 3 से ज़्यादा वक्फ बोर्ड में नहीं हो सकते हैं। और
वक्फ यूजर इज कंसर्न, अरे शमशाद सर Sir, what has the Supreme Court said as far as Waqf by user is concerned?
See, Supreme Court has not specifically said anything in this short pronouncement, but I understand the court has dealt with this issue. We'll read that judgment and then only we can respond.
And as far as the non-Muslims being appointed to the Waqf board?
That has been completely... See, non-Muslim being appointed in Waqf board, the court has said it will have to be limited to 3. As far as Central Waqf Council is concerned, this will have to be limited to 4. Remaining shall be Muslims. As far as appointment of chief executive officers are concerned, the court has said that they are not staying this specifically, but the government should consider that as far as possible, Muslim chief executive officers should be appointed.
So this was, you were hearing Mr. M.R. Shamshad, who had been one of the key petitioners before, in fact, the Supreme Court, as far as the Waqf Amendment Act is concerned, clearly saying that, only 3 Muslim members on, non-Muslim members on the Waqf board, while 4 on the Waqf Council could actually exist, is what the Supreme Court has gone on to say. In fact, also suggesting the government that the CEO of the Waqf Council shall be in fact a Muslim itself, and that is a big pitch coming in from the topmost court of the country is concerned. But as far as Waqf by users registration is concerned, the detailed judgment would actually answer as to whether the Supreme Court had affirmed registration for in fact the Waqf by user is concerned, because the primary argument that the government had been putting forth before the topmost court of the country when Waqf by user was actually being discussed was that it is not the 2025 Act that mandates the registration of Waqf by user. It is from 1926, since the Waqf Act had come into the picture, that registration of Waqf is something that was made compulsory and important, and now in fact, a digitalization of in fact these Waqf record through the Umeed portal is something that is being done, is what in fact the government had gone on to say, while defending the removal of Waqf by user principle from in fact the new Waqf Act. And how would have Supreme Court dealt with it would be clear as soon as the detailed judgment copy would come out. But a big order coming in from the topmost court of the country, certain provisions be
Good evening, you're watching Brass Tacks. I'm Zakir Jacob. India gave a nice thrashing to Pakistan last evening, both on and off the field in their Asia Cup encounter. On the field, they outclassed the Pakistanis. They beat them fair and square. In fact, overwhelmed the Pakistanis and won by 7 wickets. Post the match, Captain Suryakumar Yadav